guys, it's Jessica from Peace Love Books, and today I'm here with my September wrap-up. I never remember the month when I go to do these wrap-ups. It is the 29th today, so I do have a day and a half to read. I do think I'm going to finish something today, but I'll just add it to my next wrap-up because I need to film today. And I read 15 or 16 books. I can't remember. It was a pretty good reading month considered I worked the entire month back to school. I'm a teacher, so I still did a good job reading, thankfully, to the Contemporary-thon, mostly because I read a lot that week. And yeah, I'll just go ahead and get to the books that I read. The first book I finished was Dare to Surrender by Carly Phillips. I read this because I met Carly at the signing I went to this month at Readers on the River. This is a pretty short, I don't know if you'd call it a novella. It's still like 200 pages, 150 pages. And our main character, she leaves her significant other, I think they are just dating, and she leaves with her car, but everything's in his name. He's super controlling, so then he calls the police and says she stole the car, and she's kind of like left with nothing, and so she is left at the police station, and the cop's brother comes to pick her up, and they've always had a kind of like chemistry together, so it's their romance. It was really fun, really short and sweet. I read it for the 24-hour romance readathon that Riley and Lainey do put on together, so I will link that vlog down below. It was cute. I gave it 4 stars, just a quick fun read. Next, I read The Guy on the Right by Kate Stewart. This one is like super buzzed right now in the new adult romance world, and it was super cute. Our main character is always like the guy that's not like the one all the girls notice. He's in the picture, he's the guy on the right, and everyone thinks he's like the hot guy in the middle, and so he's also in the college band, and he meets this girl at this party, and they're in the dark so they don't see each other's faces, and she just ended up breaking up with someone over the phone, and they're both kind of drunk, and they just spend the night talking and really get each other, and they agree to be friends, but they don't tell each other who they are, and it's their romance. It was so cute. I will say that there was a conflict that I was not that big of a fan of at the end, so I'd give it 4 out of 5 stars, but I'm super excited for the next book. I think it's The Guy on the Left, so it's about his roommate that caused some issues in this book, and his story is gonna be so good, so I would definitely recommend this if you like new adult college romances. It's so fun. Then I listened to the audio of I Flipping Love You by Helena Hunting. This one is a home renovation romance. Both of our main characters buy properties and they want to flip them and sell them, and so our first main character is a twin, so she meets the love interest in the grocery store, and he like pretty much like verbally attacks her. He's like, you hit my car, and like goes off on her, and she's like, what are you talking about? It was actually her twin who did it, and so she has to deal with the insurance with this guy, and then they realize that they are kind of in the same real estate business where this guy comes down to from his job, because I think he's like a lawyer or something in New York, but he comes down to this city, I don't remember where it is, but it's all about buying houses and renovating them, and it's so fun and so cute. I laughed out loud. I give this 4 out of 5 stars. It's a really good audiobook, and I really liked the romance, and I liked how they kind of had to do a working relationship then, because they're working in real estate with each other, but kind of started liking each other, and I loved the meet cute. It was hilarious, so definitely recommend this one. Then I read An Arc from Berkeley, and that is Bringing Down the Duke by Evie Dunmore. This one is a historical romance, and our main character is a new student at Oxford, and she has to take classes in different places without men, with a chaperone, and she needs to get the help of wealthy men for the women's rights movement, and so she is put on this duke and ends up falling for him, and they go out to his house for a party, and then I love how back then everybody like stayed at the Duke's house when they had a party, and they all saw each other at breakfast and like went out on horse rides together. This was so fun. I loved it. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. It was just a really good historical romance that I really liked the romance, and I would definitely recommend. Next, I read Bad Saint by Monica James. This is book 1 in the trilogy. It is a kidnapping dark romance. So in the very beginning, our main character is kidnapped, and she starts falling for one of the people who kidnapped her, and it was so good. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. I loved the angst in this romance and how she kind of started humanizing him, even though he should have been demonized like as her captor, and his name is Saint, and she keeps on kind of growing close to him, and she can see that he has some good in him and that she's kind of breaking him down. Whew, and there are some very dark moments. You don't know what's gonna happen. You feel very scared for our main character, but it's so good, and that ending had me like, what's gonna happen next? I could not recommend this enough. I was obsessed with this entire book, and I really can't wait to read book 2. Book 3 just came out, so I'm dying to read the rest in this series. Next, I read Fated by Rebecca Zanetti. This is a fated romance, and I believe he's a vampire. So this is one of the very first books Rebecca Zanetti ever wrote. Now she has like a ton of them. So I gave this 3 out of 5 stars. It was like he had to like, this woman, there are people after them, and so in the beginning of the book, her daughter has a dream that the bad men are there, and this guy shows up saying, we need to take you to safety, and the girl's like, oh good, you're here, and the mom's like, what's going on? And he is basically there because she is his fated mate, and there are bad people after them because there are bad vampires that are after her because they are trying to do this like serum thing to like reverse mating so they can steal this good race vampires mates to strengthen the bad race of vampires. And it was okay. Like I said, I gave it 3 out of 5 stars. It could have done a lot more, and it was pretty boring throughout it, but I think it gets a lot better, and there's a romance in here that I really want that's not until book like 10. So the book I want, I have to read a lot to get to it, but I'll probably continue the series since this is the author's first book, and I saw potential. I just think this one wasn't that great. Next, I picked up Her Royal Highness by Rachel Hawkins. I did get this book from the publisher, and this one is about a girl who goes to Scotland. I'm obsessed with Scotland. I went there this summer, and I want to read everything that takes place there. She is obsessed with Scotland as well, but more for the rocks because she loves rocks. And so she applies to this boarding school, especially because this girl that was like kind of her friend that she kind of ended up having a thing with kind of ignored what happened and got back together with her boyfriend, and so she, our main character, really doesn't feel comfortable anymore, and it's super awkward, so she really wants to get away. So she does apply to this boarding school and gets in, and her new roommate is the Princess of Scotland, and there's a romance, and it's definitely hate to love. It's very cute. I gave this 4 out of 5 stars. I really enjoyed it. I did think the pacing wasn't the best like halfway to the end, but I really enjoyed it. I thought it was cute. There were times I was laughing out loud and like telling people like the outrageous things that this princess was doing because she wants to get kicked out of the school. It was really fun. I really enjoyed it, and I loved the Scotland environment. Next, I read Neat by Candy Steiner, which was sent to me by the author, so thank you so much to Candy for sending me a paperback of this. I did do a review and a video of my favorite Smart and Swoony heroes, which I'll link those both down below. This one is a small town romance, and Logan's our main character, and he is definitely a nerd. He is a tour guide at the whiskey distillery that his family's always been a part of. His brother is one of the barrel makers. His father pretty much helped bring this company to life, but his father died in a very tragic, kind of mysterious way, and so he and his family and the rival family that started the company together are now rivals, and it's very much a Romeo and Juliet situation. The daughter of the rival family is going to be working with him, and so he has to train her, and they butt heads immediately, but then it kind of slowly turns into a romance. I give this 4 out of 5 stars. I liked the romance. I liked the hate to love. I hate the bad girl trope, and she was definitely a bad girl and would like break the rules and push his buttons just because she could, and she can do whatever she wants, and she doesn't want anybody to tell her what to do. So I wasn't a huge fan of her character, but I love Logan's character. I love the family in here. If you love family, you'll love this. It's all brothers, and they're all getting their own books, and I think that the conflict was annoying because you could see it coming from a mile away, and he was still mad about it. And I was like, dude, you knew it was gonna happen. You talked about it happening. So I gave this 4 out of 5 stars. Next, I listened to the audio of Reaper's Legacy by Joanna Wild. I did get to meet Joanna at that signing, so I loved meeting her. I read book 1 earlier this year, I think, and now I listened to the audio of this one, and I gave it 3 out of 5 stars. It wasn't my favorite. Our main character gets pregnant at 16, and her baby's father's stepbrother is our main character in here, and he ends up taking care of them because he's the boy's uncle, and she is in a lot of danger. She doesn't live in a good place, and so he's like, that's it. You are coming home with me, and I'm going to take care of you guys, and you're going to live with me, and there's obviously sparks that fly, and so she's like, we can't live together. That is crossing the line. I can't do this, and there wasn't enough MC in my opinion, and it was kind of slow, and I wasn't the biggest fan of the narrator, so that's why I give it a 3 out of 5 stars, but I am excited to continue on with this series. This next one was a huge disappointment, and I have an entire reading vlog on it. I'll link that down below, and that is The Beautiful by Renee Ahdieh. This was advertised as vampires in New Orleans in the 1800s. There were barely any vampires in here. I did not connect with the romance whatsoever. I didn't get the romance, and so when it was like all of a sudden there and they were like in love, I was like, when did this happen? And I feel like I was more confused than not throughout the whole thing. I don't really enjoy Renee Audier's writing though. I gave The Wrath of the Dawn 2 stars. I didn't like it. If you zone out for even a second, you are super confused because her writing just like goes places and says things you don't even know it's saying until you reread it like 5 times. And so I did not like it. I was so mad that there weren't really any vampires. You didn't know who was a vampire or not, if they were a vampire. And then some characters came in at the end that were like super important and I'm like, where were you this whole time? And it's 400 pages. And so I gave this 2 stars, not at all what I wanted, and I know a lot of people also are not enjoying this, so it was a huge miss for me. I read a lot of books this month of the older brother's best friend trope, and so the next one I read for Romanceopoly for our mystery challenge is to read a hockey or football romance. So I read Playing for Keeps by Kendall Ryan. This is the first book I listened to on Audible Escape because I just got that and it's amazing. Highly recommend. It's romance audiobooks. It's $7 if you already have Kindle Unlimited, so that's what I'm doing. This one's a hockey romance. Our main character is a elementary school teacher. I believe she's a kindergarten teacher and her brother's on the hockey team and his roommate is another hockey player and she's always liked him and then he finally sees her as something more, so they have to sneak around behind her brother's back and obviously it's gonna come to fruition eventually. That's pretty much the whole premise of this book. There's not much more I can say without spoiling things, but I loved it. I gave it 4 to 5 stars. I don't remember why I only gave it 4 to 5 stars. The romance was fun. The audiobook was really good. Maybe, I don't know. It was just a fun romance that you can get lost in. She goes to hockey games. He's a hockey player. I loved that. So I would definitely recommend this if you're looking for a good audio and a good hockey romance. Next one, I'm starting all my contemporary-a-thon reads. So the next book I read was Twice in a Blue Moon by Christina Lauren. I was sent this ARC from Gallery and this one comes out in October and it was a huge letdown. I gave it 3 stars, probably more of like a 2.5. Our main character has a fling with this guy in London when she's 18 and she's a secret child of an actor. Her and her mom like left the Hollywood scene when she was really young and he leaks the story and so she never talks to him again even though she like fell in love with him within a week. And then it fast forwards 8 years, 13 years, I don't remember. I think she's like 30 now, so like 12 or 13 years. And she's a famous actress and she's on a movie and he is the screenwriter for the movie. And that's the premise. There was like barely any romance in here and 100 pages of the book is the past. So the 100 pages of this adult romance is an 18-year-old falling in love with a 21-year-old and I thought he was a little creepy. He would be like, well, I get to spend the day with the most beautiful girl today, like literally the minute he met her. And I feel like I could just imagine if a guy said that to me, I'm like, you're a creep. Like, stop with the cheesy lines, please. So, I don't know. And I feel weird. He was 21 and she was 18. And I don't know. That just like felt weird to me for some reason, even though it shouldn't have. And it took a long time just to get to the present. And then it took like even a longer time to even get any kind of romance in there. So I gave it 3 to 5 stars, probably more 2.5. Very disappointing, but it was a more serious side of Christina Lauren, not their rom-com side. So I think I like their rom-coms better. Next, I read the audio of Elements of Chemistry Attraction by Penny Reed. This is a 3-part series and they're super short and I think that's a big reason why I didn't like it. Our main character is in college and she's chem labs with a hot man on campus and they end up having a romance and they go away on spring break together and she like literally just like goes with him overnight because she has to go to a party to track him down to tell him that someone's trying to drug him because she overheard that and then that's when he was like, oh, I really like you, come on spring break with me, and they go to this really rich house and go on spring break, and it was just really boring. I didn't care for the main character. I thought she was funny. She would recite synonyms when she was nervous, which I thought was a fun quirk, but I just wasn't really interested in the romance. I was more bored than not, and it ended way too soon before anything could like really happen, and like the ending was annoying because you know there's a explanation for it, but like she acts like there's not. And it was annoying, so I gave it 3 out of 5 stars. Next, I read The First Girl Child by Amy Harmon. This is a fantasy romance for the Ravished by Romance book club that I did with my friends Lacey and Sarah. This is a, like I said, fantasy, and it spans like the whole life of our main character. And so when our main character is born, his mother curses their entire land and says, from this day forward, there are no women, children. And so the first girl child is this girl that our main character is immediately drawn to, and he is her protector, and you know that they're gonna have a romance later on. There's a lot of secrets and a lot of action and a lot of fighting and a lot of fantasy stuff that I can't explain right now, and I really enjoyed it. I gave it 4 to 5 stars. I love the world. If you want to see more of our thoughts, watch our live show. It is a little bit spoilery though, so keep that in mind, but I didn't have any issues following this world. I really liked it. It wasn't really romantic until the very end, but their romance kind of built throughout their lives because they were together through their whole lives until he was like in his early 20s when he finally comes back and they could be together. So that's all I can say. It's really good. Then I read an arc of Down Too Deep by J. Daniels. I got this arc from Forever Romance. This comes out in October. I think it comes out on the 8th. It does. This is a single parent romance, so our main character is a mom of twins who are 8, and then she falls for a guy who is a single father of a toddler who is 2, and he is really struggling. His parents have been watching his daughter for 2 years and finally said, you need to man up and be the parent, so we're not going to do this for you anymore. So this girl steps in and says, hey, I'd love to watch her for you. I work from home and my kids are on summer break. So she does. He's a restaurant owner, and they start spending time together and fall in love, and it was so cute. I give it 4 out of 5 stars. I was annoyed about the middle where a conflict was like them deciding not to be together for no reason. I don't know. I just wasn't a fan of that whole plot point, but the kids are adorable. I love them. I loved Nate. I love the whole romance. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. And the last book I read so far is Serenading Heartbreak by Ella Fields. This is a love triangle romance, a very angsty romance. So if you hate angst and you hate love triangles, you'll hate this book. Our main character falls in love with her brother's best friend, and they are in a band together, and he is bad news. He comes from a very troubled household, and they keep their romance a secret, and then he leaves with the band, and she's heartbroken. He cuts off contact, so she goes to college, falls in love with a baseball player. Then her old love shows up, and she's kind of juggling between the two guys for like 3 years, and it's not as annoying as it sounds. I end up giving this 5 out of 5 stars because you have to keep in mind it is a love triangle. Our main characters are very flawed, their emotions are high, and they just don't know what to do with their decisions, but our main character made very logical decisions. She never like immediately jumped into the next guy. She made them wait. She did wait months until she made a decision whether she wanted to be with someone or continue waiting. I didn't know who she was going to pick at the end, the band guy or the baseball player. I definitely had a favorite, but it did keep you on your toes until the end, and she goes through some really realistic things, and the ending is so realistic. It's not all sunshine and rainbows. She doesn't choose someone and they're happily ever after, where they have issues, which I really appreciated. So if you want a realistic, very angsty love triangle, you would love this book. And those are all the books that I read in September. Let me know down below what you read. I would love to hear. As always, thank you so much for watching, and have a good day. Bye.